Did Joan of Arc really have prophetic visions?
Joan was born around 1412 as a peasant girl in rural France. Historically, peasants didn't have power. They didn't command armies or advise kings. But when Joan was about 13, something unusual happened. She started hearing voices. She claimed the first voice belonged to Saint Michael the Archangel. He initially gave her simple instructions: be pious, behave virtuously, and attend church. She did as she was instructed. She spent the next several years living an intensely religious life. By 16, the visions and instructions had evolved. Joan said that Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret told her she had a divine mission. She was to speak to Charles VII, the disputed heir to the French throne. Then she would help liberate Orléans from the English. Finally, she would help bring Charles to Reims to be crowned king. And the voices gave her instructions for how to begin. She was told to pursue a local military commander. After repeatedly requesting his assistance, he finally provided her with an armed escort, and she traveled roughly 300 miles to appear before Charles. At Charles' request, theologians examined Joan's faith and character. Their job was to determine whether she was morally reputable and whether the voices she heard could be trusted. And this is where St. Michael's first instruction helped enable the fulfillment of her divine mission. The theologians found that Joan was devout and pious. They had no grounds to reject her as unorthodox, so they advised that her proposed mission to Orléans could be tested by its results. Then, remarkably, her prophecies started coming true. Joan arrived at Orléans in 1429. Within days, French forces went on the offensive. The English siege collapsed. Then Joan urged that they march through contested territory to Reims so Charles could be crowned. Against the odds, the campaign succeeded. On July 17, 1429, Joan stood inside Reims Cathedral as Charles VII was crowned King of France. Tragically, she was later captured by English allies, put on trial for heresy, and ultimately burned at the stake. After her death, the original trial was judged to be invalid, and the charges against Joan were nullified. But an interesting question to consider: were Joan's visions and prophecies authentic? Did her faith give her the will needed to fulfill them? Or was it merely a coincidence that her unusual visions came true?